Hey, Mac here. With so many people deciding that jewels are just a better alternative to a lot of nodes on the skill tree, I decided that it was time to farm as many of these jewels as possible. And the best mechanic that I know of in order to farm these jewels is through Djinn Baryas, or the Trial of Sekima. And thus, I ran 30 of them to see what I would get. I ran all item level 80, and the way I ran these trials is by using 6 merchant price reduction and additional choice relics. These are pretty expensive and cost anywhere from 3 to 4 div each. I invested 3 div each by sniping ones that were cheap, and I had one already stashed of my own. What these relics allow you to do is basically buy out the entire vendor. Paired with Silver Tongue and effect of non-unique relics, the cost of all boons and honor and even relics go to 0. The merchant will begin offering you more relic choices once you buy out all the boons, but this is basically to guarantee a run where you don't brick. As far as rooms go, I tried to prioritize Hourglass and Chalice rooms wherever possible, but if I needed to pad away from certain really bad afflictions or just to get to merchants or other notable nodes, I path to other rooms. But the Chalice and Hourglass rooms will spawn the most number of rares, and that is going to be a good chunk of where currency comes from as well, and also where the majority of your bigger drops like Divines will come from. There is a bug currently with the final boss that I experienced 3 out of 30 times, and I ended up rerunning those. The boss will basically just insta-kill you, even if you've gotten all of the hourglasses, and it happens right before he does his sort of time freeze. But regardless of that, each run took me around 20 to 25 minutes, depending on whether or not I got the merchant in the first floor. Alright, so after 30 runs, this is what we got. And so I'm not going to bore anyone with this identifying process, but yeah, this is going to be a while. I'll get back to you guys when I'm done with this. Okay, so these are the results. I have been selling jewels like left and right that I've personally crafted. Good, good example. But for the most part, the Sanctum pooped out hundreds of jewels after 30 runs, and mainly this is because you save all your keys until the last room, and I just open all the royal caches and of course the gold spectrum and time lost caches if I do see those. I don't really mess around with the medium relic ones anymore, which can give you like the merchant relics, but for the most part I don't think they're really worth when you have other better caches to open. So besides the actual jewels, a lot of these are going to end up being like 10 to 20x jewels. And there's a couple like 1 or 2 div ones, mostly the recover mana on kill ones. There's one really big one right here. And yeah, I think that overall made a lot of currency from Sanctum. I think it's worth farming if you really enjoy the content. You're going to make plenty of currency. A couple decent rares. I had a Spirit Corrupt on a 3 Dragons. I actually ended up getting 4 3 Dragons for some reason, but I'm not including the other ones. Some rarity, move speed gear, all that. I kind of stopped picking up rares after a while, and I just really don't have the patience to like ID and do all of that. But there's a couple listed for sale. This one was kind of insane. Would have actually used it for my build if it was the right base, but nevertheless. Yeah. Just like, honestly, looking at rarity gear is going to be something you want to do just in general, but that's kind of what I looked for. I got 3 raw div drops, which was a little bit more than expected, honestly, but I was targeting rares, so I guess that kind of does make sense. I was doing like the Chalice and the Hourglass trials where I could. 3 annulments, all the other currency. I got a lot of exalts. I mean, it's pretty profitable, like I said, but I don't think it's like an insane amount of money to where you're like gonna want to do this over mapping. Frankly, I think mapping is just better if you have like Magic Find. But let's get into the nitty gritty of where most of the profit is, right? So I have 2 Grand Spectrum jewels that I sold. They're both the 4% all res. I rolled 4% on both of them, and one of them just ended up being more expensive because the price went up.
Same thing with the relics. So there's a unique relic that makes the final boss just have more life and deal, or take less damage and do more damage. And that relic sells for 3 to 4 div. It ended up going up to 4 div as I was finishing these runs, but I had already sold 5 of them for 3 div. But most of the time, Grand Spectrums are going to be like major profit. I also sold a merchant relic for 1 div and 60x, which was pretty nice. But yeah, you want to open the golden chests that say Golden Spectrum. They drop the Grand Spectrums, which I think are like going to be the biggest payout besides getting the Last Flame relic, which, by the way, I did not find. 30 runs. Really didn't expect it. I'm assuming the drop rate's like close to 1%, if not lower. But yeah, I guess that's it. There's not really too much more to talk about. I got 1 perfect Jewelers and 2 Graders, I think. Where are they? There they are. So, you know, that's a decent chunk of currency, but besides that, I mean, it's Sanctum. It's fun. I think the big thing is having the right, you know, relics. I invested, I think, close to 15 div or so on the relics, and might have been more, actually. But it's honestly going to make the experience a lot better compared to if you were to run, like, crappy, just random honor resist ones. You can do it with those, but you're going to get some runs where it feels like you're just completely bricked because you get like minus move speed or merchant prices or whatever. You just can't combat it. But yeah, I know that the time loss tools right now are currently like impossible to search specifically like for stats on the trade site. Once they fix this, I'm probably going to look into these more. But for now, they're just going to rot in this tab, and we'll see what happens next.
Alright, so quick little update. This is the day after. I've been selling these jewels quite frequently at 10x each. I'm sure I'm underselling some of them, but that's fine. It's like tiny infusions of 10x just constantly, you know. I've been kind of struggling to even finish a map in a reasonable amount of time because I just keep being whispered. Nevertheless, this has been a really interesting project. I think it's definitely worth farming them, to be honest, especially if you don't really have any jewels to sell. Having like a big stock like this might be nice to just get constant currency coming in. And again, I don't think you really need the relics. I actually ran a decent chunk of them just using honor resist and honor relics. That being said, I had a much bigger life and ES pool, so I had like 12k honor to start with. But the merchant choice one just really guarantees your run. So again, look into it. If you want to farm Djinn Baryas, we'll get more of these time lost and just normal jewels on the market, which is always healthy for buyers, and build diversity. Until next time, ciao.